He was just a single dad in seat 17E, comforting his daughter during a stormy flight, until the intercom crackled with a trembling voice. "This is your captain. If there's any experienced pilot on board, please come forward. We need help, now." Passengers gasped. Oxygen masks dangled, and that quiet Mamwo everyone had ignored moments earlier slowly unbuckled his seatbelt. His name was Mark Turner, a widowed father and former Air Force pilot who hadn't touched a cockpit in 7 years. He wasn't supposed to be a hero anymore, but in that moment, fate didn't care about titles. It called for courage. Just 38, Mark looked older than his years. His once sharp eyes carried the weight of sleepless nights and single parenting. Each morning began before unpacking his daughter's lunch, dropping her off at school, then heading to the aircraft maintenance hangar where he worked on planes instead of flying them. He'd been a decorated pilot once, the kind who could land a fighter jet in a desert storm, but after losing his wife in a car accident, he'd left that life behind. Now, his world revolved around her. 6-year-old girl with freckles and a smile that looked too much like her mother's. She was the reason he kept going. The reason he booked 2 economy seats on a red-eye flight to visit his parents after years of silence. The night was dark, rain slamming against the cabin windows. Flight 482 cut through a thunderstorm, lights flickering. Mark held his daughter close as she dozed against his arm. Then came that voice over the intercom. "This is the captain. We've lost 1 engine. Repeat, we've lost 1 engine." Gasps rippled through the cabin. The air turned heavy. Mark froze, his instincts waking faster than his heartbeat. A flight attendant, pale with fear, stumbled down the aisle. "Is there anyone here with aviation experience?" Mark's daughter tugged his sleeve, whispering, "Daddy, you can help them." He looked at her, then at the terrified passengers. For a long second, the man who once led squadrons across the sky wrestled with the man who now just wanted to raise his daughter safely. And then her stood up. "Before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours researching and crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart and you want to see more real acts of courage and kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It truly means the world to me and helps these stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's see what happens next. Have you ever witnessed an act of courage or kindness that completely changed your perspective? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to read it. Would you like me to continue with part 2? The encounter and first connection. This is where Mark enters the cockpit and faces a terrifying test that will reignite the hero he thought he'd lost. The aisle seemed longer than ever as Mark Turner walked toward the cockpit. Every step echoed like thunder in his chest. He could feel eyes on him. Passengers whispering, praying, hoping. He stopped at the curtain that separated fear from chaos. A flight attendant, her voice trembling, asked, "Sir, are you a pilot?" Mark nodded once. "Former Air Force. Haven't flown in years." The captain's relief was almost visible. "We've lost hydraulics and partial control. I don't know how long she hold." Mark slid into the co-pilot's seat. His hands hovered over the controls. Familiar, yet foreign. The hum of the failing engine mixed with warning alarms. Red lights flickered across the panel like angry stars. He took a deep breath. "All right, let's keep this bird in the sky." In the cabin, Mark's daughter pressed her face to the curtain seam, clutching the toy airplane her mother had given her before she passed. A flight attendant knelt beside her and whispered, "Your daddy's very brave." The little girl whispered back, "He always was. Mark wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to take control again." But kindness has many forms, and sometimes it looks like courage rediscovered. He spoke calmly to the captain. "I've got your back. You're not alone. Together." They recalibrated pressure systems manually, something most commercial pilots hadn't done since simulator training. Mark's steady voice kept the captain focused. His presence, calm, commanding, kind, spread through the cockpit like oxygen. Down below, passengers began to settle. Fear turned to cautious hope. As the plane leveled slightly, the captain looked at Mark and said softly, "You just saved us from a nosedive." Mark gave a faint, tired smile. "Let's make sure we land too." And though no one knew his name, every soul on that flight now owed their heartbeat to the man in 17E. A single dad who had simply stood up when it mattered most. But this was only the beginning, because what came after the landing would change Mark's life forever. When Flight 482 finally touched down, the cabin erupted, not with panic, but with tears and applause. Phones were raised, passengers shouted prayers of thanks, and in the middle of it all stood Mark Turner, trembling with relief, holding his daughter close. She looked up at him, eyes wide. Double quotes, "Daddy. Did you fix the airplane?" He smiled faintly. "We all did, sweetheart." News spread faster than the plane. By the time the passengers disembarked, footage of Mark in the cockpit was already circulating online. Single dad saves Flight 482. At first, Mark wanted none of it. Cameras, interviews, strangers calling him hero. He didn't feel like one. He felt like a father who did what he had to do. But then came Evelyn Ross, the airline's operations director, a composed woman in her 40s, who met him at the gate. She'd been a pilot once, before an injury grounded her career. "Mr. Turner," she said gently, "you just did what most trained pilots couldn't. You saved 187 lives. We'd like to thank you personally." Mark hesitated. "I'm just a mechanic. I'm no one special." Evelyn smiled softly. "Maybe that's exactly what makes you special. But heroism doesn't come without complications." Mark's story went viral overnight. News vans camped outside his small apartment. Offers flooded in, sponsorships, media deals, even a book proposal. Yet, while the world celebrated him, his daughter began to struggle. At school, whispers followed her. "That's the hero's kid." Her drawings changed from rainbows to airplanes falling from the sky. Mark realized that in saving one flight, he might have endangered the peace of the one life that mattered most, his child's. He called Evelyn late one night. "I think I made a mistake," he said. She replied, "No, Mark, you reminded the world what quiet courage looks like. But maybe it's time someone reminded you it's okay to ask for help, too." That call would set in motion a new act of kindness, one that would once again change everything. A week has passed since Flight 482. The world had moved on, but for Mark Turner, peace still felt distant. He returned to work quietly at the auto shop, refusing interviews and awards. All he wanted was to keep his daughter, Lily, grounded and smiling again. But one crisp morning, an envelope arrived, sealed with the airline's logo. Inside was a single ticket. Destination, Seattle. A note read, "Come see what you built courage for." When Mark and Lily arrived, they were greeted by Evelyn Ross and a group of engineers standing beside something breathtaking, a sleek, silver flight simulator. Gleaming under hangar lights, Evelyn smiled. "This is the training center we're opening for veterans and single parents who left aviation behind. We're calling it Wings Again." Mark blinked. This is for me." She nodded. "For you. Because kindness should have a ripple effect. You saved lives without hesitation. Let's make sure your courage inspires the next generation to do the same." Behind them, a small banner read, "The Turner Initiative, because heroes come from every seat." Tears welled in Mark's eyes as Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, can I learn to fly too?" He knelt beside her, voice shaking. "You already do, baby girl. You helped me remember how." The crowd applauded softly. Evelyn placed her hand on Mark's shoulder. "Sometimes," she said, "the best pilots aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who teach others how to rise again." Months later, the hangar buzzed with life. Veterans in flight suits trained beside single moms and dads, all given a second chance at purpose. And in the corner, Mark stood beside Evelyn partners in the program. Every time a trainee completed their first simulated landing, they'd sign a plaque that read, "Flight 482. The day courage took off again, Mark never sought recognition. He only wanted to be a good father. But by leading with love and answering a call no one else could, he gave hundreds away to reclaim their dreams. It's been 2 years since that unforgettable day aboard Flight 482. The story of the single dad in 17E became a worldwide symbol of courage, humility, and hope. But for Mark Turner, fame was never the goal, legacy was. Today, Mark co-directs the Turner Initiative, a foundation that helps veterans, single parents, and low-income families find new careers in aviation and engineering. Every weekend, he still brings Lily to the hangar, now a lively hub where laughter echoes and dreams take flight. She sits proudly beside him as students learn the basics of aerodynamics, her little hands sketching airplanes in a worn notebook that once belonged to her mom. Evelyn Ross, the airline executive who once called for a help midair, now works side by side with Mark. Together, they've expanded wings again to 3 more cities. When I met Mark, Evelyn says, smiling during an interview, I thought I'd found a pilot. What I really found was a teacher, one who reminds us that every setback hides a reason to rise. One afternoon, after class, a young woman approached Mark, a new trainee, tears glistening. I was on that flight. She whispered, "You probably don't remember me. I'm studying to become a pilot because of you." Mark froze. For a moment, words failed him. Then, with a trembling smile, he replied, "I don't need to remember faces to feel the change they bring. You're why we do this." And as the sun dipped below the runway, Mark watched her taxi the simulator forward, confident, calm, and ready. Sometimes, life's greatest turbulence leads us exactly where we're meant to land. Mark Turner didn't just save lives, he reignited purpose in others. And through every life touched by the Turner Initiative, his late wife's promise to raise their daughter to be brave, lives on. So next time life asks you to step forward, even if your hands tremble, even if you think someone else is better suited, remember Mark in 17 East. Heroes don't wait for titles, they just answer the call. If this story touched your heart, please like this video. It helps more people discover these true acts of kindness. Subscribe and join us for more inspiring stories that prove compassion still exists in the world. And before you go, ask yourself this: what act of kindness could you perform this week? It doesn't have to save 187 lives, it just has to lift one. Thank you for watching, and remember, kindness doesn't need wings to make the world soar.